Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about boundary setting. And I've seen this quote by Brene Brown a couple of times, and it says, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. And I felt like this is the perfect quote to begin to start the conversation about boundaries. So this is going to be a two-part video. And in this first part, I'm going to talk about some things that may make it difficult for you to set boundaries, and just talk about like what boundaries are for. So I have my notebook here, so I'm going to be looking down to make sure I cover everything. So let's talk about why boundary setting may be hard for you. So one thing that I hear often is, well, I don't want to set these boundaries because I can be seen as mean, right? And so the purpose of a boundary, even though it feels like we're being mean and sometimes it feels like we're being selfish, the purpose of a boundary is to keep the people in your life. It's to strengthen the people in your life, to strengthen your relationships versus to keep people out. Now, if there are people in your life that cannot respect your boundaries, then maybe those people don't need to be in your life. But the purpose of a boundary is to make your relationships more stronger, more healthier, and more fulfilling. It prevents you from giving, and not receiving anything in return. It prevents you from breeding resentment within your relationships. But sometimes we feel like, well, I don't want to set this boundary because I can come off as being fill in the blank. So if that's you, one thing that I found helpful is to kind of go to the underlying message that I've received. So for example, maybe you have an underlying message that says, only nice people do these things. Or if I do these things, that means that I'm not nice. Or nice people never have tough conversations. Or nice people don't involve themselves in conflict resolutions. So I invite you to kind of explore, what is that underlying message that you have about what being nice means or what being mean means, right? Because when you think about boundary setting, it's a healthy communication and a healthy tool to have in a relationship. It's not something that's meant to start conflict. It's not something that's meant to tear apart relationships. It's meant to build respectful, healthy relationships. All right. So that may be one reason why it's hard for you to put in place a boundary. Another reason why it may be hard is that you fear that you may lose the person that you have to put the boundary in place for. Right? That's a real fear. Like, what if this person that I love, I care for, what if I lose them as a result of putting in place this boundary? And now this is where you can engage into your value system, seeing what is most important to me in a relationship. And it's also a place where you can define for yourself, what is it that I'm looking for in this romantic relationship, in this friendship, and is this aligning with what I'm accepting right now? Sorry, my words got mixed up. What is it I want in this relationship? Is it aligning with what I'm accepting in the relationship? Okay, so there may be this fear of losing someone, but sometimes you just have to weigh the pros and the cons. There will be consequences either way, but they have to be consequences that you're comfortable with living with. All right, that's what it comes down to. You may in fact lose the person if you set the boundary. However, if you lose the person because you are on a personal development journey, because you are engaging in boundary setting, was this person supposed to be in your life for this season if the boundary causes them to leave? Okay, so that's something that you can think on. Another reason why boundaries may be hard for you is because you have used them in the past as a survival mechanism. Okay, so let me explain this a little bit more. Sometimes when we don't put in boundaries, it's because the only way that we were able to get our needs met were be quiet, don't say anything, go along with everybody else is doing. Because if you speak up, if you're too loud, if you express yourself, then you're gonna be rejected and you're not gonna get what you absolutely need. So think about childhood, think about food, nurturing, affection. Sometimes we're taught to shut up, to be quiet, to not say anything, and then we can get our needs met. But now that we are adults, we have to start communicating our boundaries and our needs and our wants. And I know sometimes it can be hard to let go of that because that's the way that you got your basic needs met, right? But you have to say to yourself, is this still serving me? It served me in the past. I'm grateful that I got through that, but is it something that I still need to be engaging in now? Is it still a survival mechanism that is benefiting me now? Okay, so that may be another reason why you find it hard to set boundaries, because you fear, if I do this, then what are the consequences? What might I be missing out on, or which one of my needs will be left unmet because I'm setting this boundary, okay? And then the last thing here is you feel like it's a rejection to people. So say, for example, and in part 2, I'll talk about the different types of boundaries you can set and some examples of those boundaries. So say, for example, you find that you just overextend yourself so much so that you're always tired. So you set a time boundary and you say, after 10 o'clock, I'm going to put my phone on do not disturb, okay? So one of the fears you may have is if you have a friend that only calls you at 12 o'clock at night because that's when they're on their break, all right? And they talk for hours and hours. And basically they're talking to you to get through their shift. It starts off on a break, but then it's like 2 to 3 hours that you're on the phone with them. And it causes you to be groggy, sleepy, irritated the next day. So you say, you know what, I need to set a time boundary. So you go to your friend and you say to your friend, listen, I have to set this boundary. I'm not getting like sleep. I'm waking up irritated. It's impacting my mental health. So 2 to 3 days out the week, I'm gonna set a 10 o'clock bedtime. And you may feel like when you say that, you're not being a good friend or you're rejecting that person. And now one thing about boundary setting is that you are responsible for what you do. And this can be hard, even in friendships and relationships, but you're not responsible for how the person responds to you setting a boundary. Now, I know as humans, like we want it to turn out good. We want the person to say, ideally, you know what? I want you to get your sleep. Okay, I understand that. Don't worry about it, girl. It's okay. But sometimes it does not go that way. All right, and we can't control how the person responds to it. We can't control how they may feel after we set our boundary. So another reason that may be keeping you from doing that is because, well, I don't want this person to feel like I'm rejecting them, right? And this is a good place to remind yourself that your needs are important too, that your needs matter too. And this is a good place for you to ask yourself, how else may I serve my friend while still holding my boundary? Maybe you say, okay, girl, on the nights we don't talk, let's find something you can do. Or, hey, I've been reading this book, so I'm going to give you this book. You can read it on your break, and then, hey, let's talk about it the next time. So that way we can balance. So I can get what I need, I can get my sleep, and you can have some way to spend the time while you're working, or to help the clock go by when you're working, or to keep your mind stimulated as you're working. Okay, so I'm gonna end it now because I don't want this video to be too long. But in the part 2, I'll talk about a little bit more about boundaries, but I'll talk about the different types of boundaries you can set, and then I'll talk about some examples of those things. All right, y'all, bye.